Hello, everybody. Welcome to Watchful Studio and a new series that I want to call Unscripted. Basically, the idea of this series is to talk about things in the industry that are going on or trends, history of the gaming industry, anything along those lines that can be a good topic of discussion. So feel free to put your comments down below of things that you'd like me to talk about. To give you a little bit of background about me, I started my gaming career working actually in a hobby store while I was at university. And I ended up basically taking over the games section of a hobby store. And the store itself was kind of a hobby store. It wasn't a gaming store. It had, model planes and RC cars and all that stuff. And I was getting into Warhammer and Warhammer 40K at the time. And I thought I knew a lot about the gaming industry. So I kind of took over the games section, ended up, basically becoming the manager of that section, doing all the orders and that kind of thing. And got to know my sales rep at Games Workshop. He said, "Hey, you should come work for Games Workshop. It's a lot of fun." So I ended up spending about 7 years working at Games Workshop, starting as a mail order troll, and then ended up going into the promotions and marketing department as a scenery designer. So I was designing gaming tables for Games Workshop at their events like Games Day, basically their very specific gaming event for Games Workshop products. The Games Day doesn't really exist in the same way that it did before, but there's something similar that happens in the UK every year, or at least it did prior to COVID. And then I ended up becoming the events coordinator and then eventually the US events manager. And I ran all of their sales conferences, convention presences at things like Gen Con, Origins, other gaming events, as well as running the grand tournaments and, of course, the Games Days. After I left Games Workshop, I ended up working for Battlefront Miniatures for about 5 years, and I was the US events manager for them, and worked with some of my other counterparts in the UK, mainly to develop an events presence globally. I didn't really do much outside the United States, but I ended up taking over the nationals that we ran for eventually early, mid, and late war. Also was in charge of a presence at shows like Gen Con, Origins, Historicon, all the events that we went to. So I had a lot of fun throughout my career in the gaming industry. And when I left Battlefront Miniatures, I got a job, I guess you could say, as a civilian, and ended up getting into a different industry, doing recruiting and HR work, that kind of thing. That's basically what my degree is in human resources management. So now this is really more of a hobby of mine, a passion of mine, something that I spent, basically 20 years of my life earning a living. And now I'm kind of want to give back to the community and do these YouTube videos and kind of use my experiences and knowledge of the industry and partake it on you people that are willing to listen. And maybe I'm just an old codger and have nothing new to say, but hopefully I do. Hopefully I got some good insight on what's going on in the world. And one of the things that I wanted to touch upon with my experiences, particularly at some of the larger gaming companies, is the notion of the fear of missing out. And this is a psychological warfare that is played between the manufacturers and the customers. And it is one that we as a customer often lose. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but all those videos out there that you see of people's pile of shame or closet of shame, or some people call it their pile of opportunity, however you want to consider it. But the reason why we have all of those miniatures unpainted, unassembled, sitting in boxes, is that notion of the fear of losing out. And one of the companies, which is the leader in this industry, the name we shall not name, does it to a notoriously amazing level. And the time that I spent at that company, 7 years, the one thing that you learn is the excitement and the drive for your new releases. And even though you may own 20, 30, 50, 100 of a particular toy soldier, they give you that warm, fuzzy feeling of wanting to collect the new version of that item. And the thing that I noticed when I was working for the company that shall not be named was even as an employee, when those new releases were coming out, and we even had early access to it. So we'd get it maybe a week before the actual public release, and times have changed tremendously. But I remember going into our local retail shop at our headquarters and buying items for armies I didn't even play. I just was like, ooh, new release, new shiny. And I just would have piles upon piles of miniatures. And the old adage is true. Whenever people would come up to us and go, wow, you must save so much money working for the company. Actually, you don't. You spend probably more money, but you just end up getting more for your money. So it is a danger working for the company or for the game or the product or whatever that you love. It'd be like working at Dunkin' Donuts and getting free donuts every day, right? I'd probably be 900 pounds instead of how big I am now. So I'm glad I don't work in the food industry. But it's the same idea. And when I went and worked for Battlefront Miniatures, I was a little naive in the whole concept of the fear of missing out. And in the science fiction and fantasy world, when a new product came out, I mean, that was the new buzz, that was a new excitement. And whether the previous version of that miniature came out in metal or resin or even plastic for that matter, and it was redone, it was the job of the marketing wing of that company to want you to buy 1,000 more, 100 more, whatever, 2 boxes, 10 boxes, whatever, of that product, even though you owned a bunch. And that's how people started collecting their piles of shame. And getting into historical miniatures, which I played, but now I'm working for a historical miniatures company. And at that time, Battlefront Miniatures was just starting to get into plastics. And I had that fear of missing out. And even though I may have already owned 60 painted T-34s, when that plastic set came out, I was just as excited about picking up 4 or 5 boxes of the T-34s as I was about the science fiction and fantasy world. And being an events manager, I went into that same excitement at shows thinking, the T-34s are going to sell amazingly because those plastics are awesome. And the U.S. Armored Rifle Platoon is going to sell amazing because they're new plastics. And the half tracks are plastic and they used to be resin and metal and they're so much cheaper now. And Shermans are plastic and everybody's going to buy them all over the place. And the slap of reality came when sales didn't do as well as I thought they were going to do. I mean, they did well. I mean, you always get new players, and Battlefront Miniatures obviously sold what they needed to sell, or they wouldn't be around anymore. But it was a cruel reality for me because players would walk up to me and go, "Joe, why do I want to buy the new plastic T-34s? I already own 40 of them. I already own the my army's worth." And it really made me start to realize about this fear of missing out that, it doesn't happen to everybody. It doesn't happen to every company and or miniature product or whatever, and um, really opened my eyes. And I'll tell you something right now, it still hasn't changed me. I have been so indoctrinated about the fear of missing out that even today, for games that I haven't played very much or even at all, I still find that when a new release comes out, and I'm fascinated with that sculpt or those particular miniatures or whatever, that I want to collect it the day it releases, because I'm worried that it won't be there tomorrow. And that is really what helps and drives these miniature companies, particularly because they want to capture those sales and they live off those sales, and so do the retail stores. So it's really not. This isn't a tale of woe or describing the bad parts about the miniature hobby. And actually, the fear of missing out is a very critical and important part of the survival of miniature wargaming for the future. With all these things that we have access to, whether it's 3D printing, 1 day deliveries and mail order, we are an instant gratification culture. And companies have to come up with different ways to attract us and get us excited about a particular product. And I'm experiencing that even today. One of the things I didn't touch upon is after leaving the gaming industry, I started my own company. I really wanted to kind of keep my toe dipped in the waters. And for really kind of fun at the moment, I own my own miniatures company, Watchful Studio. And that's the reason why this channel exists is, I kind of want to have it as a video diary, a vlog of not only my hobby experiences and share some tips and tricks and things that I picked up over the years, which we'll continue to do, but also provide a community service with product reviews and book reviews and things of games that I enjoy to collect and play, but also use it as a marketing tool for my miniatures. I have a historical and fantasy range of 28 millimeter Asian themed armies. And you can always check out the website, Watchful Studio, the letter I, studio.com. And there might be something in there you like. But my business model is obviously going to be different than some of these larger companies. And it's really important to have that fear of missing out. And even smaller companies like myself can capture some of that with things like Kickstarter. Kickstarter is a fear of missing out marketing philosophy. You have a certain time period in which you can pledge your money to get products that will eventually be released in the future. And a lot of companies will entice you by, limited items, maybe cheaper pricing, all the freebies through stretch goals, all those things to give you that fear of missing out. And, even a couple Kickstarters that I've run, I'm not in the hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, but I've had some successful Kickstarters, and I've even gotten emails from people saying, I wish your Kickstarter was just a week later because, I get paid in 2 weeks and I didn't want to, carry it on a credit card or whatever. But it was that fear of missing out that they were expressing to me, that they didn't want to miss that Kickstarter. And, as I touched upon it with the retail stores, it's the same concept. The new releases are so important to retail stores. And, when they get kind of, when they order 10 and they only get 2 and they get short shipped on all their products, it really hurts their sales. And those new releases drive customers into the store, and they may pick up that new release or two, but then they're also going to be like, hey, while I'm here, I'll pick up a bottle of paint and maybe some glue, and oh man, that my paintbrush, my dog ate it, or whatever the case may be. But there's always some impulse buys that they'll have, and a good retail store will capture that, right? They'll have deep stock, good inventory, a good selection of stuff, so they don't miss out on those impulse purchases. And I see it myself as a customer all the time. I'll walk into one of our local shops, and if I'm not necessarily there for a new release, I'm often there because I just want to spend money. And if the selection of products isn't there, and the store isn't doing their part by carrying that, they're missing out on those opportunities. And that's really kind of a different topic, maybe for a different day, is talking about the hardships that retail stores have about the depth and range of products that they have to carry just to survive. And then they have to compete now with a global market and online discounters and all sorts of stuff. And that could be actually a topic for a different day. We're getting a little off the tracks here. But I just wanted to talk a little bit more and kind of expose that idea of the fear of missing out. And even in life, we have that, like not going to the party on Friday night because, you think you might miss out on a good time. And the gaming industry just really, they want you to drink the Kool-Aid. At the end of the day, it's all about drinking the Kool-Aid because they want you to be foaming at the mouth for those new releases. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's the willpower and the control in all of us to make sure that we're not, overspending and putting our personal finances and family and financially in jeopardy and all that because we can't control our impulse purchases. And there are so many options out there today with all the smaller companies like myself, all these subscription services that offer 3D printing STL files and little startups and new game systems. And then you have all the big companies to worry about. So, I mean, there's a lot of choice out there. If you're just willing to look for it and see what fancies you. So, what do you think about this whole fear of missing out? Is it important to you? Can you control yourself? Do you have a closet or a pile of shame? I have no joke, I have a room of shame. And maybe if you guys are interested, I showed it in one video, which I can leave the link in, but I have a room that's probably competitive with most retail stores out there as far as miniatures are concerned. That's really my bread and butter. I have a couple board games, but I really am a toy soldier freak. So, what do you guys think? I just thought I'd share a little video with you and talk about something that was been on my mind lately through the purchases and game systems that I've been collecting and playing, and kind of sometimes having a little bit of buyer's remorse afterwards about, why did I just buy that? I'm not going to play that game for months. So what do you guys think? Throw your comments down below. I appreciate you watching the video. And if you have any suggestions or ideas for future videos, I'd be happy to talk about it. And hopefully we'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Have a great one. Bye-bye.